Hello, Ruben here, and welcome to the 51st episode of the Samplecast. Now, we've been on a break for a few weeks, and I've been sending out newsletters in between times, even though there hasn't been any proper YouTube or podcast shows. Just telling people what's going on in the world of sample libraries and plugins. So I'm not going to rehash in this show exactly what's been happening during July. I'm sure you can read back through the newsletters and find out for yourself. If you're not already subscribed to that Samplecast email blast, please do so. It's pretty useful, and I include some information on there each week. Things that I haven't covered in the show necessarily. Just go to thesamplecast.com, click on the newsletter link, and you'll see the link there to sign up. So let's get on with the show, and there's a couple of notable news items this week. So we'll kick off with another hybrid sound design library, and yes, I know what you're thinking, another one, but this one I did really like the look of. This is Atom by Audio Modern, and it's been 2 years in the making by 8 different sound designers. It's 7.2 gigabytes in size and runs in the full version of Contact. It's got 180 different presets that can easily be tweaked by changing the layers, source, then applying effects. There's stuttering in there, you've got unison controls, filters, and a dual arpeggiator as well. I was really struck by the nice clean interface here and the lovely expansive sound. With this kind of instrument, you probably know what to expect by now, but I'd urge you to take a look at Atom, as it really has some lovely sounds and is very user-friendly. Check it out at the Audio Modern website. One other library that I think has been rather overlooked in the last couple of weeks is Indiginus's Blues Street Brass. It was released a couple of weeks ago and features many solo brass instruments performed in a kind of old-fashioned jazz style. Some of the actual instruments here are over 100 years old, and that really does add to the authenticity. So think kind of 1930s, 1940s film noir, that kind of sleazy brass sound, and you'll be on the right track. It's almost 2 gigabytes in size, runs in the full version of Contact 5.5.2 and above, and the package includes authentic impulse responses from vintage microphones too. Now, listening to the demos, I have to say that some of the performances here I wasn't convinced by, but others do sound very authentic, so it might be a case of you having to pick and choose the patches, but you can judge for yourself at the Indiginus website. Some delicious freebies this week, thanks to Samplecast fan Dylan Buckle for alerting me to this first one. It's a 600 megabyte collection of trailer and sound design effects from Radium Audio, and it's called Shadow Oscillations. It's got some really unusual sounds here. There's lots of kind of grinding and glitchy effects, as well as some nice boom, transitions and atmospheres as well. Radium Audio have also included some interesting pictures and information about the making of the library. Do check it out at their website. The link is in the show notes. Atmos Plus from Beatmaker is something that I mentioned in the last Samplecast newsletter, but I'll give it another quick go over here. If you're not subscribed to the Samplecast newsletter, please do so. There's stuff in there that I won't necessarily feature in the show. And this 180 megabyte instrument runs in the full version of Contact 5.6.8 and above. It uses 6 layers to create nice kind of plucky pad sounds. There's onboard effects too, including chorus, flanging and convolution reverb, and I would recommend you give it a go. Download it and see what you think. This next library has been kicking around for a couple of months, but I've only just had the chance to mention it. It's a town hall organ at over 3 gigabytes in size and runs in Contact, Ableton, Logic EXS24, and there's a sound font in there too. It's called the Leeds Town Hall Organ and is from Samplephonics. It's a really impressive sound with nice clean samples. To be honest, it's a bit of a pain to download the 3 folders and kind of reconstruct the file structure so that it works properly, but for anyone who's kind of half familiar with sampler instruments and how they work, you shouldn't have too much trouble here. Do check it out at the link in the show notes. This week's big review is Synchronic by IK Multimedia. This has been a long time coming, and it bills itself as a pretty exhaustive sampled vintage synth collection. It contains 17 instruments for IK's sample tank player, a separate plugin, or as a standalone player as well. And the samples here have been taken from 38 different vintage synths. So all in all, this culminates in over 2,000 presets, and it's almost 60 gigabytes in size, which is huge. Before I kick off and talk about the interface and sounds, let me first talk about the download and installation. It is a simple process, but it's very long-winded. First you have to download the free version of Synchronic, which contains 50 presets. Anybody can do that, you don't even have to pay for it. Then you can download each individual synth from the IK website, unpack it and install it. This is pretty time consuming stuff, although I guess it does give you the freedom to download just the synths that you want. To get the whole 60GB package, however, you're looking at a significant time investment to download and install the 23 different sound banks, which are around 2GB each. So let's get into the instrument, and I'll start with auditioning some of the sounds. It's easy to find the sounds that you want with the style, timbre and genre filters, and I'll go through and show you a few of those now. The interfaces here are very closely modelled on the physical synth units that they're emulating, with the knobs and buttons all present and correct, plus a few more. In fact, the entire interface for Synchronic is very easy to navigate, and I didn't need to open the manual once. Loading times for the presets are okay. They're not lightning fast, but they're not too sluggish neither. Even though these are sampled synthesizers, the modelling is pretty good, and I love the inclusion of features that you don't get on the original units. For example, you can mix and match filter types from different machines, which I thought was genius. You can also stack up to 4 different layers of different sounds using the ABCD section of the interface, and this can create some really crazy fat sounds when you start to layer them up. So let me talk about the sounds for a minute. They are pristinely sampled. In fact, I'd say sometimes they're a little bit too bright and clean. It was useful to be able to add drive and sub-bass to the sounds via the onboard effects rack, and this comes in handy for many of the bass presets especially, which on all of the synths, to be honest, I did find lacking in the low end. Of course, IK's effects plugins are pretty legendary, and there are 38 different ones included in the bundle here, so these are easy to swap out in the 5 different slots. Another aspect that I really loved, the onboard arpeggiator, which doesn't just allow you to set pitch intervals and volume levels like normal arpeggiators do. You can also manually adjust the length of each individual note by simply dragging the arp bars in the interface. Another cool thing, you can restrict the ARPs to certain note ranges, which is great for when you've got multiple synth patches on the go and you want control over them all. These functions I found really innovative, and they were super fast to use. So you pretty much know what you're going to get with a synth rompler like this, but Synchronic does it all in a really stylish way with really easy to use interfaces. And I have to say, I give it kudos for that. Aside from the lengthy installation process and that some of the presets I did find a bit light, there's nothing really bad for me to say about Synchronic. It's obviously a labour of love from IK Multimedia, and they've done themselves really proud here. I'll be probably noodling around with these synths for ages, and I do look forward to creating some epic retro tracks with Synchronic. Even though it's €300, I think this is still a really good price, and you know me, I'm really fussy about prices. So at €300, I think this is really a snip. Do try the free demo out yourself and you'll see what I mean. Some great bargains this week, and quite a lot of them are expiring pretty soon, so you'll want to jump on them if you need them. First up, Orange Tree Samples Group Buy. Now, this was super successful last year, and this year Orange Tree Samples are hoping to give an even bigger discount to even more people. At the time of recording, the discounts are at 30%, but if over 2,000 people commit to buying, then it'll drop to 60% off. You've got until the 22nd of August to register your interest, and all libraries and even bundles are discounted as well. There's more info at the Orange Tree Samples website. This week's offer from VST Buzz is Chris Hines' flagship horn libraries, the sections and solos that is, so that's Pro Volumes 1 and 2. They run in Contact Player and are 24GB in total size. Now, these are libraries that I've always kind of had my eye on, but I've never made the leap due to the high price point. But they're 66% off at the moment, so that may make me just think again. I don't recall Chris Hines horns ever reaching this level of discount before, so if you're interested, do snap it up at the link in the show notes. Sound Toys very occasionally do sales, mostly around Black Friday from my recollection, but their summer discount package lasts until the 15th of August, and most are 50% off, with a few at 75% off. Now, many composers I know do rave about these plugins, especially those who do a lot of sound design work. I would recommend you have a look at the Sound Toys website, see what's on offer. Sound Toys have also got a 30-day free trial on everything, so if you're quick, you'll be able to audition the plugins before purchasing them at the discounted rates. Do check the Sound Toys website for details. A couple of great developer updates this week, and the first one I'll have to admit that I'd never heard of before this week is Phosphor by Audio Damage. However, the release of this version 2 of the product did make me take notice. This runs as a plugin in Mac and PC, and it's basically a modelled version of the Alpha Centauri synth, which used to connect to Apple II computers back in the day. Phosphor 2 models this setup and also has modern features including 2 tempo syncable LFOs, there's filtering there, and you've got both lo-fi and modern white noise generators. The update includes new oscillator options, you've got VST3 and AAX compatibility too, there's a new interface there and more presets as well. For more information, do check out the Audio Damage website. Wavesfactory used to offer 3 different drum kits, but they've now rolled them all into one collection, and this updated Legacy Drums collection has the sound of those 3 kits. You've got a vintage Ludwig kit played with tea-towels on the skins, that's a favourite technique of the Beatles. You've got a classic rock kit recalling the sounds of kind of 1970s legends, and lastly there's a brush kit for jazz and blues styles. Legacy Drums runs in the full version of Contact 5.5.2 and above. It's over 3GB in size, and there's up to 6 velocity layers here. You've also got 6 round robins for each drum, and there are 77 presets and up to 10 microphone positions. Do take a look at the Wavesfactory website and check out this update. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back again next week. Don't forget to check out the Samplecast podcast. You can find that at the link in the show notes, or just head over to the Samplecast site at thesamplecast.com. All the information you need is on there. In the podcast, it gives me time to expand on the information that I've given you in the show, and also provide loads more audio examples of all the libraries that I've chatted about. Until next week, bye bye now.